My name is Astrid Dorsey. I'm 55 years old, and 3 weeks ago I drove 400 miles to give my mother a kidney she spent 45 years pretending she didn't need, because she spent 45 years pretending I didn't exist. My sister Rachel is a cardiologist in Boston. At every family gathering for as long as I can remember, Mom introduced her as the doctor and me as the other one. When Mom's kidneys failed, Rachel refused to even get tested. I got tested. Perfect match. I sat by Mom's hospital bed, and when she started making excuses for Rachel, I said 6 words. 6 words that made her cry for the first time in my life. Not from pain, but from truth. Before we go further, if stories like this speak to you, take a moment to hit like and subscribe. Drop your location and local time in the comments. I'd love to know where you're listening from. Now, let me take you back to Bluefield, West Virginia, the day the hospital called. The phone at my kitchen table buzzes at 6:47 on a Tuesday morning. Not me mother calling. The hospital UPMC Presbyterian in Pittsburgh, a transplant coordinator whose voice is steady and rehearsed. We have Shirley Dorsey listed, stage 5 renal failure. Are you a family member? I say yes. She asks if I'm aware of my mother's condition. I say no. She gives me a number to call and hangs up. I sit there, coffee going cold, Biscuit pressing his gray muzzle against my shin. My kitchen in Lewisburg is quiet, always quiet. One plate in the drying rack, one chair pulled out, the other 3 tucked in. I reach for my phone to call my mother, and I realize I have to look her up. Her number isn't saved. I deleted it 8 months ago after a stretch where every call I made went unanswered. I didn't delete it out of spite. I just stopped re-entering a number that never rang back. I find it in an old email and dial. 4 rings. Voicemail. Shirley Dorsey's voice. Bright and warm. The voice she uses for the world, not for me. You've reached Shirley. Leave me a message and I'll get right back to you. I hang up. On the shelf by the stove sits a clock my coworkers gave me when I retired from the post office. 30 years carrying mail on rural Route 7. They engraved my name, Astrid Dorsey. 30 years of service. It's the only object in this house with my full name on it. My mother has 14 framed photographs in her living room. I know because I've counted. Rachel graduating medical school. Rachel at her white coat ceremony. Rachel with her first stethoscope. 14 frames, and in not one off them do I appear. I stare at the clock. Then I call Pittsburgh back. Let me tell you about Thanksgiving 5 years ago. Shirley's house in Bluefield. The long table she sets with cloth napkins and the good china. Even though most years it's only 6 of us. Rachel flew in from Boston. She wore a cream silk blouse and pearl earrings. And our mother orbited her like she was the sun. When the neighbors came for dessert, Shirley stood at the head of the table and went around the room. This is my daughter, Rachel. The cardiologist just published her 3rd paper. I keep telling her she should be on television. Rachel smiled, modest, practiced. Then Shirley's eyes swept past me. And this is my other one. She didn't say my name, didn't say what I did, just my other one. Like a spare set of keys you keep in a drawer. The table went quiet. Not shocked quiet, the kind of quiet that meant everyone had heard it before. Rachel looked down at her plate. My cousin Dale studied his cranberry sauce. Nobody corrected her. Nobody ever does. That's the thing about a pattern. After long enough, it stops looking like cruelty. It just looks like the way things are. I could walk you through Shirley's living room with my eyes closed. 14 frames on the wall and the mantel. Rachel's diploma. Rachel receiving an award from the Cardiology Association. Rachel in her white coat, arms folded, confident. A studio portrait of Rachel and her husband Craig on their wedding day. Not a single photograph of me. Not my high school graduation. Not the day I started at the post office. Not my face at all. I never asked why, when you already know the answer. The question is just a way of begging, and I stopped begging a long time ago. But what I didn't know then, what none of us knew, was that in 3 years, every one of those frames would mean nothing compared to a blood test. I carried mail for 30 years. Rural Route 7, 41 miles of gravel shoulders and leaning mailboxes. 6 days a week through fog and mud, and the kind of cold that turns your knuckles white benign. 00 a.m. I knew every house. Knew the Pattersons kept their flag up even when they had nothing to send. Just liked seeing me wave. Knew old Henderson switched to large print magazines the year his cataracts got bad. When Mrs. Patterson fell and broke her hip, I brought her mail to the bedroom for 6 weeks. When Mr. Henderson died, I was the first person at the door. That route was my world. Small, steady mine. I retired at 52. The post office threw a little party in the break room. Sheet cake, paper plates, a card signed be everyone on staff. My supervisor handed me the clock. 30 years, Astrid, you never missed a day. The room clapped. I cried a little, carried the clock home and set it on the shelf. And for the first time in 3 decades, I didn't set an alarm. My mother didn't call. The next week, she called to tell me Rachel had been interviewed by a medical journal. They're running a full profile. Can you imagine? I said, "That's great, Mom." She talked for 9 minutes about the article. She didn't ask about my retirement. Didn't ask what I planned to do. Didn't ask if I was okay. The post office gave me a clock. My mother gave me silence. I kept both. I set the clock on the shelf where I could see it every morning. Proof that someone somewhere thought 30 years of showing up was worth engraving. It would be 3 more years before a hospital in Pittsburgh proved that showing up mattered more than anyone in my family ever admitted. Rachel calls me on a Wednesday, 2 days after the hospital's voicemail. Her voice is clipped, efficient, the same tone she uses for patient consultations, I imagine. No preamble. Mom's in stage 5 renal failure. She's at UPMC Pittsburgh. She needs a living donor. None of us on the wait side are a match. I'm calling to let you know. I grip the edge of the counter. Are you getting tested? Silence. 4 full seconds. I count them. I can't risk my hands. Astrid, you know what I do. I do know what she does. She's a cardiac surgeon. Her hands are her instrument. Adenor nephrectomy carries a small risk of nerve damage, complications, infection. I understand the logic. I also understand that logic is a convenient place to hide when love gets expensive. Is anyone else getting tested? I ask. Cousin Dale has type B blood, so he's out. Mom's rare. It's a narrow pool. And you're telling me this because the hospital needs to contact all immediate family. I wanted you to hear it from me first. She didn't want me to hear it from her. She wanted to control the message. That's different. Okay, I say, I heard it. Astrid, I said I heard it, Rachel. She pauses. Then I'll keep you updated. She hangs up. I stand at the counter for a long time. Biscuit waddles over and drops his chin on my foot. I look at the clock on the shelf. Astrid Dorsey, 30 years of service. Rachel called me not because she was worried about me, but because someone needed to deliver the news and she didn't want the hospital to do it first. She managed a notification. She didn't make a choice. I already know what my choice is, I just haven't said it yet. That night, I sit at the kitchen table with my laptop open, reading about kidney transplants until my eyes burn. The numbers are plain. The average wait for a deceased donor kidney is 3 to 5 years. Shirley is 78. She doesn't have 3 to 5 years. A living donor cuts the wait to weeks, sometimes days, and the outcomes are better. Kidneys from living donors last longer, function faster, reject less. But the pool is small. You need a blood type match, tissue compatibility, a clean bill of health, and you need someone willing to lie on a table and let a surgeon take an organ out of your body for a person who may never say thank you. I close the laptop and pour a glass of water. Gary Bowen comes by the next morning, same as always. Coffee on my porch, 2 chairs, the mountains blue in the distance. Gary's lived next door 11 years. Retired plumber, widower, the kind of man who notices when your porch light burns out and replaces it without asking. He takes one look at me. Something's off, I tell him. Short version. Mom's kidneys are failing. Rachel won't get tested. Nobody else is a match. Gary sips his coffee, watches a crow land on the fence post. You thinking about it? I'm past thinking. He sets the mug down, looks at me straight. You don't owe her a kidney, Astrid. But you owe yourself an answer about who you are. I stare at the mountains. Gary doesn't push, he never does. I call the transplant center that afternoon. The coordinator, a woman named Margaret Hale, walks me through the screening process. Blood draw, CT scan, full physical, and a mandatory psychological evaluation. Psychological, I ask. Standard for all living donors. We need to make sure you're choosing freely. I almost laugh. I'll schedule the blood draw. Nearest lab that handles transplant compatibility panels is 90 minutes south, past 2 mountain passes and a stretch of Route 219, where cell service drops to nothing. I drive it on a Thursday morning, Biscuit in the passenger seat because he hates being left alone and I hate the quiet. On the way, I try to remember the last time my mother said, "I'm proud of you." I go back 10 years, 20, 30. I get all the way to grade school, a spelling bee I won in 4th grade. And even then, I'm not sure she said it. I might be inventing it because I need it to exist. The lab is in a medical plaza off the highway. I fill out forms. The phlebotomist ties the tourniquet, taps the vein, fills 3 tubes. Name of the recipient. Shirley Dorsey, my mother. She smiles. That's a wonderful thing you're doing. I don't smile back. Not because I'm cold, because I don't know yet if it's wonderful. It might just be necessary. Results take 12 days. I carry my phone in my pocket like a grenade. When the call comes, I'm pulling weeds in the backyard, dirt under my nails, Biscuit asleep in the shade. "Miss Dorsey, this is the transplant center. Your results are in. You're a 6 out of 6 HLA antigen match. 6 out of 6. Perfect. The best possible compatibility between 2 people sharing a blood supply." I sit down on the back steps. The sun is warm on my arms. Biscuit lifts his head, blinks at me, puts it back down. 6 out of 6. The only perfect thing between my mother and me in 55 years, and it's inside a lab report neither of us chose. I stare at the numbers for a long time. Then I fold the paper, put it in my pocket, and go inside to think about what I'm willing to carry. That night, Illy in bed, ceiling dark, Biscuit breathing slow at my feet, and I run the math. If I don't donate, my mother goes on the deceased donor wait list. At 78, with her blood type and antibody profile, she could wait 3 years. She might not make it. Dialysis 3 times a week will keep her alive, but barely. Tired, tethered, shrinking. If I donate and say nothing, the surgery happens. The kidney works and life goes back to exactly what it was. Rachel stays golden. I stay invisible. Shirley introduces me at the next Thanksgiving as my other one. And this time adds, "She gave me a kidney." The way you'd mention someone loaned you a casserole dish. Neither option is bearable. Gary's voice in my head. You owe yourself an answer about who you are. Here's my answer. I'm the woman who shows up. I showed up for Rural Route 7 every day for 30 years. I showed up for Mrs. Patterson and Mr. Henderson and every name on every mailbox. I will show up for my mother because that's who I am and I will not apologize for it. But I'm done showing up invisible. The transplant center requires a psychological evaluation. Donor and recipient together and separately. Margaret Hale explained it clearly. If the relationship between donor and recipient carries unresolved conflict, if the donor is being coerced or guilt-tripped, the process can be paused. I don't want it paused. I want it real. I pick up the phone and call Pittsburgh. "Margaret, it's Astrid Dorsey. I'd like to proceed with the donation, and I have a question about the psychological evaluation." "Of course, what do you need?" "I need to know if the recipient has to be honest, too." A pause, then gently. "Everyone in that room has to be honest, Miss Dorsey. That's the whole point." I hang up. I set my alarm for the first time in 3 years. Rachel calls. 2 days later, I'm in the garden pulling tomato stakes for winter when her name lights up the screen. "I heard you got tested." "No, hello. The coordinator called me. She's thorough." "Astrid, you don't have veto do this." "I know." "I mean, it's major surgery. There's recovery time. There are risks. I've read about it. Mom would understand if you would she silence." I can hear Rachel breathing and behind her the muffled hum of a hospital corridor. She's at work. She always is. "Look," she says, "I just want to make sure you're not doing this out of some kind of what, Rachel?" Another pause. She's choosing her words, and I can feel her discarding the honest ones. "Obligation," she says finally. I pull Thella's stake out of the ground and lean it against the fence. "You're a cardiologist, Rachel. You know what a perfect match means. You also know you didn't look. That's not fair. I'm not talking about fair. I'm talking about facts. You didn't get tested. I did. The result came back perfect. And now I'm going to Pittsburgh." "When?" "Next week." She exhales, long and slow. The kind of breath you let out when someone else has made a decision that makes your decision look worse. Do you need anything? Sheesks, number should I call Mom? And she already knows. Okay, a beat. Astrid, thank you. She says it fast like swallowing medicine. And then the line goes dead. I stand in the garden holding a dirt-covered steak phone in my back pocket, and I realize that's the first time Rachel has thanked me for anything in 30 years. It came after I agreed to a surgery she refused. I go inside and start packing. My mother calls that evening. Her number shows up on the screen and I stare at it for 2 full rings. It's been so long since she's initiated a call that for a second I don't recognize the area code. Astrid, Rachel told me you got tested. Her voice is thin, reduced by weeks of dialysis and hospital food, but the rhythm is the same. The bright, managed cadence she uses to frame the world the way she wants it. That's so sweet of you, honey. Sweet. Not brave. Not generous, sweet. The word you use for a child who shares her candy. They said I'm a match. I say, well, isn't that something? Rachel sent the most beautiful flowers, did I tell you? An arrangement from that place on Newbury Street. She has such good taste. I hold the phone away from my ear for a second and breathe. Has Rachel visited? I ask, a pause, half a beat too long. She's so busy, you know. The hospital depends on her, but the flowers, they're on my windowsill right now. I can see them from bed. I walk to my own window. The mountains are going purple in the dusk. Somewhere in Pittsburgh, my mother is lying in a hospital bed, praising flowers sent by the daughter who won't come while talking to the daughter who will. I'll be there next week, Mom, for the evaluation. Oh, good. Will you bring my blue house coat? The one on the hook behind the bedroom door? Sure. You're a good girl, Astrid. She hangs up. Not I love you, not thank you. You're a good girl. The same thing she'd say to a neighbor who brought soup. I stand at the window a long time. Then I notice she said Rachel sent flowers. She didn't say Rachel called. Flowers from a catalog, novisit, no voice. That's the daughter she brags about. I take the casserole dish Gary left on my porch last week and walk next door to return it. He's at his kitchen table reading, glasses low on his nose. A crossword half finished in pencil. Sit, he says. Coffee's hot. I sit. I tell him about Rachel's call, the fast thank you. She choked out like she was swallowing a pill. I tell him about Shirley's call, the flowers, the house coat, the good girl. Gary sets his pencil down. Did she ask how you were feeling about the surgery? She asked me to bring her blue house coat. He looks at me over his glasses. She's treating you like a delivery service. Astrid, I wrap both hands around the mug. The coffee is bitter and too strong the way Gary always makes it. And right now I need something with edges. I've been a delivery service my whole life, Gary 30 years carrying other people's packages. I just didn't know I was doing it at home, too. He doesn't say anything for a minute. Gary's good at that, letting silence hold weight without filling it. So what are you going to do, he asks. I'm going to Pittsburgh. I'm going to give her the kidney, but I'm not going to deliver it like a package and walk away. Meaning the coordinator scheduled a psychological evaluation. Both of us in the same room. She's going to ask about our relationship, and I'm going to tell the truth. Gary nods slowly. And your mother? My mother is going to have to sit in a chair and answer the same questions. And for the first time in 45 years, she's not going to be able to introduce me as the other one and change the subject. He picks up his pencil, fills in a crossword. About time, he says. I finish the coffee, go home, start a list of what to pack, house coat, insurance papers, and the truth, which doesn't take up any space in a bag, but weighs more than everything else combined. 3 days before I leave for Pittsburgh, Margaret Hale emails me the pre-evaluation questionnaire, 14 pages. I print it at the library because my home printer's been out of ink for a month and I never replaced it. There's nobody to print things for. I sit at the kitchen table that night with the pages and a pen. Question 4. Describe your relationship with the recipient. I write distant. She is my mother, but we speak rarely. She does not acknowledge my presence at family events in a meaningful way. Question 7. Are you donating of your own free will without pressure or coercion from any person? I write, yes. No one asked me to do this. No one expected me to. Question 11. Is there any unresolved conflict between you and the recipient that may affect your post-donation relationship? I set the pen down, stare at the kitchen window. My reflection stares back. A woman with short gray-brown hair and reading glasses and a face that has spent 55 years being overlooked. I pick the pen back up. Yes, my mother has treated me as invisible for most of my life. I do not believe she values me as a person. I believe she values what I can provide. I read it back. It's true, every word. And I know that when Margaret Hale reads this, she'll flag it. She might pause the process. She might decide I'm donating out of guilt or desperation for approval and pull me from the list. I sign the last page and seal the envelope. I had two choices. Lie on the form and give my mother a kidney she'd never acknowledge or tell the truth and risk losing the one thing that finally made me visible to her. I chose the truth. And if the truth disqualifies me, then at least someone at that hospital will know I existed. I dropped the envelope in the mailbox the next morning. 30 years I carried other people's mail. This is the most important letter I've ever sent. Right now, I'm sitting at my kitchen table staring at a form that asks me to describe my relationship with my own mother. And for the first time in 55 years, I'm going to tell the truth. If you've ever had to fill out a form, write a letter, or say words out loud that you've been swallowing for decades, you know this feeling. Hit subscribe so you don't miss what happens when I walk into that hospital. Now back to Pittsburgh. Before I leave for Pittsburgh, I stop by my mother's house in Bluefield to pick up the housecoat and the insurance papers she asked for. I have a key. Always have, though I can't remember the last time I used it. The house is quiet. Shirley's been in the hospital 3 weeks. The air smells like lavender sachets and old carpet, and the furnace clicks on as I step inside, as if the house still expects Somion to come home. I find the house code on the hook behind the bedroom door, exactly where she said. The insurance folder is in the hall closet. I gather both and start to leave. But I stop in the living room. I always stop in the living room. 14 frames. I count them the way you'd count stars, knowing the number won't change, but needing the ritual anyway. Rachel at 8 holding a piano trophy. Rachel's medical school graduation. Shirley beaming beside her. Rachel and Craig at their rehearsal dinner. Rachel receiving an award I can't read from this distance. 14 frames, 0 asterisks. I open the buffet drawer to look for the insurance card she mentioned. And beneath a stack of church bulletins, I find it a photograph loose, unframed, edges slightly curled. Me, maybe 6 years old, standing in front of our old mailbox on Birch Street. I'm wearing my father's postal jacket. The sleeves hang past my hands, and I'm squinting into the sun with a grin so wide it takes up half my face. My father took this picture, I'm sure of it. He died when I was 9. My mother kept it in a drawer beneath church bulletins. Not on the wall, not in a frame, in a drawer. I put the photo in my jacket pocket and close the buffet. I don't take anything else. I lock the house and drive to Gary's. That photograph is coming to Pittsburgh with me. I don't know why yet, but it's coming. I call Margaret Hale from Gary's truck the evening before we leave. He's inside packing sandwiches for the drive. I sit in the tailgate with my phone and the mountains going dark. Miss Dorsey, I've reviewed your questionnaire, she says. Her voice is neutral, neither warm nor cold, the voice of someone trained to hold a steady line. I'd like to go over a few things before we meet in person. All right. You wrote that your mother treats you as invisible. Can you say more about that? I watch a hawk circle the tree line and I tell her the Thanksgiving introductions, the 14 frames, the retirement she didn't call about. I keep it factual. No tears, no tremor. 30 years of sorting mail teaches you how to move through a route without stopping at every house. Margaret listens then. And you still want to proceed with the donation? Yes. Can I ask why? Because she's my mother and she's dying, and because I don't want to become the kind of person who lets someone die to prove a point. Understood. A pause, papers shuffling. The evaluation will have 2 parts. I'll meet with you alone first, then both off you together. I have to be direct with you, Miss Dorsey. If at any point I feel the donation is coerced or that the relationship presents a psychological risk to you as a donor, I can pause the process. I know. And if your mother isn't honest with me, I'll know that too. I lean back against the truck bed. The first stars are out. What if the relationship is unhealthy? I say, but I still want to donate. Then we work through that together if possible. But everyone in that room has to be honest. That's the only thing I require. I thank her and hang up. Gary comes out with the cooler and 2 thermoses. He doesn't ask what she said. He just loads the truck and says, 5 a.m., 5 a.m. I go to bed with the photograph in my jacket pocket, hung over the chair. We leave at 5. October fog on the road, headlights catching deer eyes at the train. Gary drives. I hold the thermos and watch West Virginia scroll by in the dark. Route 19 north, then I-79 through Beckley, Charleston, Clarksburg. Names I've known my whole life from postmarks and return addresses. Past the coal towns with their shuttered storefronts and the new dollar stores standing where hardware shops used to be. Gary doesn't talk much. He turns the radio on low classic country, the old stuff with steel guitar, and lets the miles pass. I stare out the window and think about what I'm driving toward. A hospital room. A woman who never hung my picture. A conversation she spent 45 years avoiding. Somewhere past Morgantown, Gary says, "You hungry?" I shake my head. He eats a sandwich anyway, steering with one hand, crumbs on his flannel. When we cross into Pennsylvania, the mountains flatten into ridges and the sky opens up. A sign reads Pittsburgh, 74 miles. Gary. Yeah, she's going to call me the other one in front of the nurses. He glances over. Let her, then let them see which daughter drove 400 miles. I don't answer, but I sit up a little straighter. At 9:30, the skyline appears. Bridges and rivers and steel gray towers rising through morning haze. Gary follows the GPS to UPMC Presbyterian, parks in the visitor garage, and cuts the engine. I sit for a moment through the windshield. The hospital is enormous. Somewhere inside, my mother is lying in a bed, waiting for a kidney she believes she deserves from the daughter she never bothered to see. "Ready?" Gary asks. "No." I open the door. But I've been showing up for 30 years. One more stop won't kill me. He grabs the overnight bag. I grab my jacket with the photograph in the pocket. We walk in. The hospital smells like every hospital. Disinfectant and recycled air and something floral trying to cover both. Gary stays in the lobby with a magazine he won't read. I take the elevator to the 4th floor alone. Room 412. The door is half open. I hear the rhythmic hum of a dialysis machine before I see her. Shirley is smaller than I remember. She's lost weight. Her arms are thin, the skin papery and bruised from IVs. The hospital gown makes her look shrunken, like someone wearing a costume 2 sizes too big. Her hair, always styled, lies flat against the pillow. She looks up when I step in. "Did Rachel come with you?" I set the overnight bag on the chair. "No. She sent the most beautiful flowers." She gestures toward the windowsill where an arrangement sits in a glass vase. White leaves professionally wrapped. A small card pokes out. I can read it from where I stand. "Get well soon, Mom. Are not Rachel, just are like a signature on a memo. They're nice," I say. She has such good taste. Shirley adjusts her pillow. "Your sister is just so busy, you understand. The hospital in Boston can't run without her." I pull the other chair close to the bed and sit down. The dialysis machine hums. The fluorescent light buzzes. Someone in the next room is watching a game show. And I can hear faint applause through the wall. "I brought your house coat," I say. "And the insurance papers." "Oh, good, you're a lifesaver." She says it without irony. She says lifesaver to the daughter who drove 400 miles to literally save her life. And she means it the way you'd thank a bellhop. I set the house coat on the bed. I don't correct her. Not yet. That comes tomorrow. But the word sits between us like a stone she doesn't know she dropped. A nurse comes in 20 minutes later. A tall woman named Denise, efficient clipboard tucked under her arm. She checks Shirley's vitals, adjusts the dialysis line, and then notices me. "Family." Shirley answers before I can. "This is my daughter." "Well, my other daughter, Rachel, is the doctor. Rachel couldn't make it." Denise looks at me, then she looks at the chart. "Miss Dorsey, you're the donor candidate." "Yes, that's an incredible thing to do." Shirley smooths the blanket across her lap. "Well, she's retired. She has the time." Words land in the room like a glass hitting the floor. Denise's hand pauses on the IV stand. Her eyes flick to me. A look I've seen before. On teachers, on neighbors, on my cousin Dale's wife after Thanksgiving. It's pity. The kind people offer when they see something wrong but don't know how to name it. I meet Denise's gaze, hold it for a second, then I look away. The evaluation with the coordinator is tomorrow morning at 10. I say to Shirley, "What evaluation?" "The psychological evaluation. It's required before any living donation." Margaret Hale, the transplant coordinator, meets with the donor and the recipient together. Shirley frowns. "I don't see why that's necessary. It's standard for every living donor. They need to make sure I'm choosing this freely." "Well, of course you are. You're here, aren't you?" Denise finishes her notes and slips out. As she passes me, she touches my elbow. Light, quick, barely there. She doesn't say a word. She doesn't need to. I sit with my mother for another hour. She talks about the food, the doctors, the woman in room 410 who snores. She mentions Rachel 3 more times. She mentions me 0. At 7, I stand. "I'll be back in the morning. Bring me a coffee. The real kind, not this hospital business." "Sure, Mom." I walk out. The hallway stretches long and bright. My shoes are the only sound. I come back at 9 the next morning. 2 coffees, one for her, one for me, the real kind. Shirley takes hers with both hands, sips, and closes her eyes. Rachel always brought me that hazelnut blend from the place near her apartment. I set my cup on the side table and sit down. "Mom, the evaluation is in an hour. I know, I don't understand all this fuss. You want to give me a kidney. I need a kidney. Seems straightforward. It's not straightforward." She opens her eyes. "What do you mean?" "They're going to ask you about our relationship." "Well, I'll tell them we're fine." "Are we?" She waves a hand. "Astrid, don't start." "I'm in a hospital bed, for heaven's sake. I'm not starting anything. I'm telling you what's going to happen in that room." She looks at me, really looks. The way you look at a piece of furniture that's been in the corner so long you forgot it could move. And then she does what she always does. She redirects. "Your sister has been so supportive. She calls the nurses to check on me. She's sending a specialist to review my case." "Mom, what?" The dialysis machine hums. The clock on the wall ticks. Muffled applause from the game show next door. I look at her straight level. "When did you last call me?" Her mouth opens, closes, opens. Nothing comes out. She knows the answer. I know the answer. The answer-ish doesn't remember because it's been so long. It doesn't register as a date. It registers as an absence. I don't repeat it. I don't need to. The question hangs in the room like a bell that's been struck and the sound won't stop. Shirley turns her face to the wall. I sit. I drink my coffee. I wait. The clock ticks. The machine hums. And for the first time in 45 years, my mother has nothing to say about Rachel. I stay for 20 minutes after that. Neither of us speaks. The room fills with machine sounds and hallway noise and the weight of a question that has no comfortable answer. Shirley doesn't turn back from the wall. I watch her shoulders, small, bony, still. She isn't sleeping. I can tell by the way her fingers grip the edge of the blanket. At 9:45, I stand. The coordinator appointment is at 10:00, both of us. They'll wheel you to the conference room on the 3rd floor. What are you going to tell her? Shirley's voice is muffled by the pillow. The truth. What truth? The one you already know. Silence, then very quietly. I don't see why we need to air private family business in front of strangers because a stranger is going to decide whether I can give you a kidney and she needs to know what she's approving. I pick up my coffee cup. "I'll see you at 10:00. I walk the hall to the elevator, 4th floor to 3rd. The conference room is at the end of a corridor lined with framed prints of rivers. Calming art, hospital-grade piece. Margaret Hale is already there, mid-40s, dark blazer, short hair, reading glasses pushed up on her head, clipboard, pen, 2 bottles of water on the table. She stands when I come in. "Miss Dorsey, how are you?" "Ready." She gestures to a chair. I sit. She sits across from me. "Before your mother joins us, I want to check in. You were very candid in your questionnaire. Is everything you wrote still accurate?" "Yes." "And you still want to proceed?" "Yes." She writes something down, looks up. "I've been doing this for 15 years. Most donors tell me everything is fine. You didn't. That takes courage. I don't feel courageous. I feel tired. But tired and brave can live in the same body. I've been proving that for 55 years. Let's bring her in." I say I should tell you what happened the night before. The part I didn't see. Gary told me later. He'd gone to the hospital cafeteria for a late sandwich and passed room 412 on his way back. The door was open. He saw the night nurse inside, adjusting Shirley's blanket. Shirley pressed the call button 3 times that evening. Not for pain medication, not for water. She asked the night nurse, a young woman named Tanya, if she could sit for a minute. Tanya sat. "My daughter's coming tomorrow," Shirley said, "for some kind of meeting." "Which daughter?" Tanya asked. She'd seen the chart. She knew there was a donor. Shirley paused, and then she said it. "Which one?" and heard herself. Heard the words land in the air between them. "Which one?" As if her daughters were interchangeable. As if naming them was optional. Tanya waited. "Astrid," Shirley said. "Her name is Astrid." Tanya told Gary this the next morning in the elevator after she learned he was there with me. She said Shirley didn't sleep much, that she lay awake staring at the ceiling. And once around 2:00 a.m., she asked Tanya, "Do you think a person can be cruel without meaning to?" Tanya said, "I think most cruelty works that way, ma'am." I didn't know any of this when I walked into Margaret Hale's office at 10:00. I didn't know my mother had spent the night awake, turning my question over like a stone in her hand. I didn't know she'd said my name unprompted for the first time in a conversation with a stranger. All I knew was that the door was about to open, and the woman who called me, the other one, was about to sit across from me in a room where she couldn't change the subject. Margaret starts with me alone. 15 minutes, door closed, voices low. She asks the questions from the form again, face to face this time. I answer them the same way, steady, factual, without embellishment. I don't cry. I don't raise my voice. I lay out 45 years of invisibility the way I used to sort packages methodically, by route, by address, by weight. How would you describe your relationship with your mother? Invisible. She raised me, fed me, sent me to school, but she never saw me. I was the logistical daughter, the one who handled things. Rachel was the emotional investment. And you're donating because Bikasesh's my mother and she'll die without it. And because I'm not willing to disappear one more time. I want to do this with my eyes open. I want her eyes open, too. Margaret sets her pen down. "What do you need from this process, Astrid?" "Nobody's asked me that. Not the hospital, not Rachel, not Shirley. What do I need? I need her to know who she's receiving this from, not the other one. Not the retired mail carrier who had the time. Me, Astrid, the daughter she never called back." Margaret nods, writes, looks up. "I'm not here to judge your family, Miss Dorsey. I'm here to make sure you're not sacrificing more than a kidney. I'm not. I'm sacrificing a lie, the lie that we're fine." She holds my gaze for a long moment. Then she stands and opens the door. "I'm going to ask them to bring your mother in now. I'll ask her questions about you, about your relationship. She may not answer the way you'd like. Are you prepared for that? I've been prepared for that my whole life." Margaret nods once and steps into the hallway. I sit, I wait. I place my hands flat on the table. A wheelchair rolls toward the door. An orderly pushes Shirley in. She's in the blue housecoat I brought. Hair combed, hands folded in her lap. She's tried to compose herself. Lipstick, even a pale rose shade she must have had in her purse. Armoring up. She sees me already seated and something crosses her face. Surprised maybe that I got here first. That I'm already inside the room and not waiting in the hallway, Margaret introduces herself, explains the purpose. Routine evaluation required by federal guidelines. Nothing to worry about, just a conversation. "Mrs. Dorsey, I'd like to start with some simple questions. Tell me about Astrid." Shirley straightens. This is a performance she knows, talking about her family for an audience. "Well, she's my oldest. She's retired now. She was a mail carrier, very reliable. What else?" The pause is short but deep, like a well you drop a penny into and don't hear it. "She's a good girl, always has been. She never gave me any trouble." "When was the last time you spoke to Astrid before your diagnosis?" Shirley's hands tighten in her lap. The lipstick suddenly looks like a mask that's cracking. "Well, we talk. You know how it is. Everyone's busy. Do you remember the last time you called her?" Silence. The clock on the wall ticks. I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Shirley's eyes move to me, then back to Margaret, then down to her hands. "I suppose it's been a while," she says. Margaret writes. The pen scratches against the clipboard. In the hallway, a cart rattles past. Someone laughs. And the photographs in your home, Margaret says. Astrid mentioned that she doesn't appear in any of the family photos you display. Is that accurate? Shirley's chin lifts. The reflex of a woman who has managed her reputation for 78 years. That's not I have photos of both my girls. I could let it pass. I've let it pass 1,000 times. The soft deflection, the rearranged truth, the version of our family that surely presents like a pressed tablecloth over a stained table. But Margaret is watching and the question is already in the room. Where Mom? My voice is quiet. Not angry, not shaking, just clear. Shirley's mouth works. Her fingers twist the belt of the housecoat. There's the one from she stops. Starts again. I'm sure I have. You have 14 frames in the living room. I've counted them. Rachel's graduation, Rachel's award, Rachel's wedding, Rachel at every stage of her life. I keep my vase level, reporting facts the way I used to report delivery issues. Accurate, detached, complete. There isn't a single photograph of me on your wall. Margaret doesn't interrupt. She watches Shirley the way a doctor watches a patient. Not with judgment, but with attention. Shirley's eyes fill. Not the dramatic cry of a woman performing grief. A slow welling like water finding cracks in old concrete. Her lips pressed together. Her chin trembles. I didn't mean to. Mrs. Dorsey, Margaret says, gentle but firm. No one is accusing you of anything. We're here to make sure Astrid is making this decision freely and with a clear understanding of the relationship. Shirley nods. She looks at me, and for the first time in as long as I can remember, she actually looks at me, not past me, not through me, not at the space I occupy on her way to something more interesting. You drove 400 miles, she says. Yes, Rachel sent flowers. Yes. She raises a hand to her mouth. Her fingers tremble against her lips. She doesn't say anything else. She doesn't need to. The math is doing itself right there in that room for the first time, and Margaret Hale is writing it all down. Margaret asks the orderly to take Shirley back to her room. Shirley goes without protest, the house coat gathered around her like a blanket. She doesn't look at me as she passes. I don't reach for her. Some truths need space before they can be touched. The door closes. Margaret and I are alone. She sets her clipboard down, takes off her glasses, rubs the bridge of her nose. Miss Dorsey, I need to ask you one more time, and I need you to understand this isn't a formality. After everything you've told me after what just happened in this room, is this donation your choice? Yes. Not because you want her to love you, I think about that. I owe her the real answer. I stopped waiting for that a long time ago. I'm not doing this so she'll love me. I'm doing this so I can live with myself. But she has to know who she's receiving it from, not the other one, me. Margaret nods. She signs the bottom of the evaluation form. Donor, psychologically cleared. Voluntary. No evidence of coercion. I'm approving you to proceed. She says the surgery can be scheduled within the week. Thank you. She puts her glasses back on, Ms. Dorsey. For what it's worth, I've been a transplant coordinator for 15 years. Most donors come in here and tell me everything is fine. Families smile. Everyone performs. You didn't perform. Neither did your mother at Themed. She stands. I'd recommend family counseling for both of you after recovery. It's not required, but I think it would help. I'll settle for a phone call once a month. The smallest smile crosses Margaret's face. Start there. I leave the room and walk to the elevator, 3rd floor to the lobby. Gary is still in the same chair, magazine open to the same page. He looks up. Well, surgery's next Tuesday. He folds the magazine. Hungry, starving. We eat sandwiches in the parking garage. I don't tell him what happened in the room. Not yet. Some things need to settle before you can carry them. She finally saw me. Not because I yelled, not because I made a scene, but because someone neutral sat us both down and asked the simplest question. Tell me about your daughter. And my mother couldn't fill a sentence. That silence told her more than I ever could. If you've ever been the daughter no one talks about, drop a comment. I want to hear your story. Now, the surgery, Tuesday morning, 5 a.m. Thepriop room is cold and bright. I'm in a hospital gown, an IV taped to the back of my hand, lying on a gurney that smells like bleach and plastic. Gary sits in the chair beside me holding a paper cup of coffee he's not drinking. He's wearing his good flannel, the one without paint stains, and I realize he ironed it for a hospital visit. That's Gary. The surgical team comes through. Dr. Parrish, the lead surgeon, explains the procedure one more time. Laparoscopic donor nephrectomy. 3 small incisions. The kidney removed through a foreign opening. 3 to 4 hours. Low risk but real. He lists the possibilities: bleeding, infection, nerve damage. The way a pilot walks through turbulence protocol. Matter of fact, any questions, Miss Dorsey? No, he nods and leaves. A nurse checks my vitals. Blood pressure steady. Heart rate 68. She marks the chart. Is there anyone else you'd like us to notify? No, the person who matters is already here. I look at Gary. He lifts his coffee cup half an inch, the smallest toast. The gurney starts to roll. Hallway lights pass overhead like highway markers. In the next wing, I learned this later. A nurse is prepping Shirley for the recipient surgery. The anesthesiologist asks standard questions. Name, date of birth, allergies. Then who's your emergency contact while you're under? My daughter, Shirley says. Which daughter? The nurse has seen the chart. She knows there are 2. Shirley pauses. 1 second. 2. Astrid. She says, Astrid Dorsey. The nurse writes it down. She doesn't know that's the first time Shirley has given my name, my actual name, when a stranger asked about her daughter. But I'll know later when the recovery fog clears. I'll read the chart and I'll see it there in blue ink, emergency contact. Astrid Dorsey, daughter, not the other one, just my name doing what a name is supposed to do. I wake up with a mouth like sand and a dull fire in my left side. The ceiling is white. The light is soft. Gary is asleep in the chair, chin on his chest, the paper cup crushed in his hand. A nurse checks something on my IV. Surgery went perfectly. The kidney is functioning in the recipient. Your vitals look great. How is she? The words come out before I think about them. I'm surprised by them. By the fact that even now, even after everything, my first question is about her. She's stable, resting. I close my eyes. The pain is there, low and honest. A 4 in incision. A piece of me in another body. The strangest math I've ever done. Gary wakes up an hour later, sees me looking at him and says, You snore. I try to laugh. It hurts. That afternoon, a nurse I haven't met brings a small card to my bedside. White folded once, the handwriting shaky and slanted, the writing of someone whose hands haven't held a pen in weeks. I open it. Thank you, Astrid. 2 words. My name signed Mom, not the other one, not Honey. Not a deflection or a redirect. My name written in my mother's hand on a card she asked a nurse to deliver because she couldn't walk to my room. I hold that card for a long time. I don't cry. I've held harder things than this. Mail sacks and blizzards. Mr. Henderson's obituary notice. My own retirement clock. But I hold it. 2 words and my name. It shouldn't have taken a kidney to hear them, but I'm 55 years old and done arguing about timing. The only timing that matters now is this. The kidney works. The card exists. And for the first time, my mother spelled out every letter. Day 2 of recovery. I'm walking laps around the ward. The surgeon said to move early, so I move slow and hunched, one hand on the IV pole, the other pressed against my side. Rachel calls at noon. Not me. She calls Shirley first. I know because Denise, the day nurse, tells me with a careful expression. That means she has opinions she's keeping professional. Your mother told your sister to call you. Denise says she said call Astrid. The phone rings 10 minutes later. Hi. Rachel's voice is tight, formal, the voice of someone who's rehearsed the first line but not the second. How are you feeling? Sore but functional. Good. That's good. A long breath. Astrid, I should have gotten tested. I stop walking, lean against the wall. The hallway is empty except for a cart of folded towels. Yes, you should have. She doesn't argue, doesn't explain, doesn't mention her hands, her career, her schedule. Just absorbs it like a body absorbing a blow it knew was coming. I don't know what to say. She says, you don't have to say anything right now. Are you going to be okay physically? Emian, the surgeon says, recovery is 4 to 6 weeks. I'll be fine. Do you need anything? I could send I don't need flowers, Rachel. Silence. She hears it. I hear it. The sentence does its work. Okay, she says. I'll call again. Okay, she hangs up. I stand in the hallway, IV pole clicking on the tile, and I think that's the first phone call Rachel has ever made to me that wasn't about relaying information. She called because Shirley told her to, but she stayed on the line because something in her knew she owed it. She didn't say sorry, but she called. And for now, that's enough of a start. I come home to Lewisburg on a Saturday. Gary drives. I sleep most of the way, leaned against the window, the West Virginia mountains rolling by like a movie I've already seen. When we pull onto my street, I see it before Gary does. A banner across the post office entrance, hand-painted in blue letters on a bed sheet. Welcome home, Astrid. My old colleagues, Jerry from the sorting room, Dana, who took over Route 7 after I retired. They're standing on the sidewalk with a sheet cake on a folding table. And when I get out of the truck, slow holding my side, they clap. Mrs. Patterson is there leaning on a walker holding a foil-covered casserole. I heard what you did, she says, and I heard what your mother calls you. You're nobody's other one around here, sweetheart. I take the casserole. My hands shake a little, and I blame the painkillers. Over the next week, cards come, 12 of them from families on my old route. People whose mail I carried for decades, whose dogs knew the sound of my truck, whose kids grew up waving at me from driveways. One card from Mr. Henderson's granddaughter, a girl I watched grow from pigtails to college. You delivered more than mail for 30 years. Now you've delivered something no one else could. I line the cards up on the kitchen shelf next to the clock. Astrid Dorsey. 30 years of service. Welcome home, Astrid. Thank you, Astrid. 3 different sources. 3 versions of the same message. You matter. You existed. We saw you. My mother took 55 years to write my name on a card. This town wrote it on a bed sheet in an afternoon. I sit at the kitchen table with biscuit at my feet, and for the first time in a long time, the house doesn't feel quiet. It feels full. 3 weeks after the surgery, Rachel flies to Bluefield. First visit in 2 years. I know this because Shirley tells me during our Sunday call, a new thing these calls, she started them every Sunday at 10. Short, sometimes awkward, full of pauses where she searches for something to say that isn't about Rachel. She's trying. The way a person who's typed with 2 fingers their whole life tries to learn the rest of the keyboard. Rachel came yesterday, Shirley says. She brought that hazelnut coffee. That's nice. I didn't make a fuss over her. I wait. This is new territory. Shirley reporting her own behavior like someone submitting homework. She noticed. Shirley adds. She asked if I was upset with her. What did you say? A long pause. I hear the furnace click in the background. The familiar sound of Shirley's house settling. I told her I was upset with myself. I don't respond right away. I let that sentence breathe. It's the most honest thing my mother has said to me in 55 years, and it came out sideways through a story about Rachel's visit. The way all truths in this family arrive indirectly, reluctantly wrapped in someone else's name. That's a start, Mom. Is it enough? Not yet, but it's a start. Shirley changes the subject to her physical therapy schedule, and I let her. Some weeks the call is 10 minutes, some weeks it's 3. The length doesn't matter. The consistency does. Rachel, from what Shirley says, drove back to Boston the same day. I picture her on I-90, the highway stretching flat and gray ahead of her, calling her husband Craig, with a voice she doesn't recognize. The voice of someone who just learned that the favorite seat isn't permanent, that you can lose the center of a room without anyone pushing you, just by someone else, finally taking up space. 6 weeks after the surgery, a thick envelope arrives in my mailbox. Bluefield postmark. My mother's handwriting shaky, slanted, pressed hard into the paper like she was writing against a wind. I take it inside, sit at the kitchen table. Biscuit lies on my feet. I open the envelope and pull out 4 pages front and back written in blue ink. The first page is apology dressed as explanation. I didn't realize how it must have seemed. I never meant to make you feel less than. Your sister was always so accomplished, and I suppose I got caught up in it. I read it twice. It's the kind of letter a person writes when they're still negotiating with the truth. Not lying exactly, but circling it the way you circle a parking lot looking for the easiest spot. But on page 3, she lands. Rachel was my proof that I did something right. Every award she won, every title she earned, that was evidence that I, Shirley Ann Dorsey from a 2-room house in Tazewell, was a good mother. I needed that proof. I clung to it. And you, You were the mirror that showed me everything I didn't do. I looked away from the mirror because it was easier. I put the letter down, pick it up, read that paragraph a third time. She's not saying she's sorry. She's saying she's afraid. She's saying that my invisibility wasn't about me. It was about her, about a woman who grew up poor and uneducated and poured everything into one daughter who could prove she wasn't nothing and ignored the other daughter who reminded her of everything she hadn't earned. It's not forgiveness. It's not even a complete apology. Parts of it are still excuses, but it's the first letter she's ever written me. The first time she's put pen to paper and addressed the envelope to Astrid Dorsey, Louisburg, West Virginia. I fold the pages, set them on the shelf next to the clock, next to the cards. I don't call her back right away. Some truths need time to cool before you can hold them. October leaves turning. I drive to Bluefield for the first time since the surgery. Not because anyone asked me to, but because I decide to go. I bring the photograph from the drawer. The one of me at 6, standing in front of the mailbox on Birch Street, drowning in my father's postal jacket, squinting into the sun. Shirley opens the door. She's thinner than before the hospital, but steadier. The kidney is working. Her color is better, her eyes clearer. She's wearing real clothes instead of a house coat. And she set out coffee on the kitchen table. You look good, Mom. I feel human again. She pours. We sit. I take the photograph from my pocket and slide it across the table. I found this in your buffet drawer under the church bulletins. I'd like you to frame it. She picks it up, holds it at arm's length. Her reading glasses are somewhere else. Her thumb traces the edge of the picture. The tiny girl in the oversized jacket, the mailbox, the sun. You look like your father, she says. I know, he saw me. She doesn't flinch. She receives it. The sentence, the weight of it, the implicit accusation, and the grief underneath. She holds the photograph against her chest for a moment. Then she stands, walks to the living room, and sets it on the windowsill. Propped against the wall between frame number 8 and frame number 9. Not framed, not centered, but placed deliberately in the light where it can be seen. I'll get a frame next week, she says. Okay. We drink our coffee. She tells me about the physical therapy, the new medication schedule, the woman from church who brings her soup on Thursdays. She mentions Rachel once, just once, and then stares back to asking me about Biscuit, about Gary, about the garden. She didn't frame it that day, but she didn't put it back in the drawer. Before I leave Bluefield, I sit across from my mother at her kitchen table. The same table where she carved Thanksgivings for 30 years. The same table where she told stories about Rachel while I cleared the plates. Mom, I need to say something. She sets her coffee down, waits. She's learning to wait. It's new for her, and it shows in the way her fingers fidget against the mug, wanting to fill the silence. I'm going to call every Sunday like we've been doing. I'd like that, but I have a condition. She watches me. The kitchen is quiet. The furnace clicks. If you introduce me as the other one again to a neighbor, a nurse, a cashier, anyone, I'll stop calling note as punishment because I'm done being unnamed. I spent 55 years answering to a label instead of a name, and I gave you a kidney, Mom. The least you can give me is my name. She doesn't argue, doesn't deflect, doesn't say, "Oh, Astrid, I never meant." She just nods. Slow, heavy, like a woman putting down something she's been carrying too long. I understand, she says, and then quieter, I'm sorry. 2 words, small, not enough for 45 years, but real. The first apology she's spoken aloud, not written in a letter, not buried in explanation, just I'm sorry. I stand, kiss her forehead. It's the first time I've touched her voluntarily in years. And she reaches up and holds my wrist. Light, brief, like she's checking that I'm real. I drive home. Biscuit is waiting at the door. Gary waves from his porch. That Sunday the phone rings at 10:00 a.m. I look at the screen. Shirley Dorsey, she called first. In 55 years, my mother has never once called me first on a Sunday. I answer. Hi, Mom. Hi, Astrid. My name both syllables. The line holds. Thanksgiving. 1 year later, I drive to Bluefield with a sweet potato casserole in the passenger seat and Gary in the truck behind me. I invited him and he said yes before I finished asking. Shirley's table is smaller this year. 4 settings. Shirley at the head, me on her left, Gary across from me. The fourth chair is for the phone. Rachel on FaceTime, propped against the salt shaker, her face small and bright on the screen. It's the first time Rachel hassled me before calling Shirley. She called Wednesday night. Happy early Thanksgiving, Astrid. No agenda, no logistics, just the words and a silence after them that felt like a room being rearranged. Shirley serves the turkey. She's slower than she used to be. The new kidney works, but 79 is 79, and the surgery took something from her stamina that she hasn't gotten back. Gary carves. I pour. When the neighbor from next door stops by for pie, Shirley stands. Let me introduce everyone. This is my friend Gary Bowen, and this is Astrid. She gave me a kidney and 30 years of mail. She says it with a small laugh, almost shy, like a woman learning a new recipe and not sure she got the seasoning right. It's not perfect, it's still awkward. Gave me a kidney is a strange way to introduce your daughter, and 30 years of mail isn't exactly a toast. But my name was first. My name was clear. And for the first time at a Thanksgiving table, I wasn't an afterthought. I look at the living room. 15 frames. Now the 15th, a simple wooden frame, slightly crooked, holds the photograph of me at 6, standing in front of the mailbox in my father's jacket. It's not in the center. It's on the lower shelf near the corner, but it's on the wall. The morning after Thanksgiving, I stand in Shirley's bathroom, door closed, and lift my shirt. The scar is 4 and long, low on my left side. Pink, clean, fatting. In a year, it'll be a thin white line that a stranger would have to look for to find. It doesn't hurt anymore. Hasn't hurt in months. But I touch it sometimes. In the shower, getting dressed, lying in bed. The way you touch a keystone to remind yourself the arch is holding. I gave my mother a kidney, a 300G organ roughly the size of my fist that filters blood and balances electrolytes and does its work in silence. Just like I did for 30 years, just like I was prepared to do for the rest of my life until a hospital in Pittsburgh and a coordinator named Margaret and a question I should have asked decades ago changed the terms. When did you last call me? 6 words. That's all it took. Not a speech, not a confrontation, not revenge, just a question so simple that the silence after it said everything my mother couldn't. I'm Astrid Dorsey. I carried mail for 30 years. I carried silence for 45. Last year I gave my mother a kidney and 6 words. She hasn't called me the other one since, not because she's perfect now. She still talks about Rachel too much, still deflects, still circles the truth instead of landing on it. But she calls on Sundays. She hung my picture. She wrote my name. I drop my shirt, wash my face, walk to the kitchen where Biscuit is waiting by his bowl, and the coffee maker is already on because Gary came by early and started it. Some gifts save lives. Some gifts save you. I pour 2 cups and sit down at the table. It's Sunday. The phone will ring at 10. That's my story. It's not about revenge. It's about finally being seen. If you had to choose between staying invisible and speaking Sixonist words, which would you pick? Drop your answer in the comments. And if this story reminded you of someone, a mother, a sister, a version of yourself, share it with them. More stories like this are waiting for you in the description below. Hit subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. I'm Astrid Dorsey, and I am nobody's other one.